Today we're talking about high school, and we're starting with one all the way back from 1982, Fast Times at Richmond High.
It was written by Cameron Crowe and it was based on a book that he wrote. And if I'm not mistaken, this is sort of what launched his career into such a big filmmaker because now he did Jerry Maguire. He did Almost Famous, which is a personal favorite movie of mine. I love that movie. And it's directed by Amy Heckerling, who also did Clueless. And it's got a lot of people in it who went on to be really successful, including Sean Penn, Jennifer Jason Leigh, who I actually didn't recognize until like halfway into this movie, and Judge Reinhold, and also Forrest Whitaker, who I didn't know was going to be in the movie, and I went out loud even though I was alone in the room. Oh my god, that's Forrest Whitaker! When I watched,
I did the same thing actually.
I actually just watched this movie for the first time for this episode. I watched it a couple days ago, and it's a really
Same.
enjoyable one. It gave me the similar vibes to Dazed and Confused, which you just mentioned, which and that it's a lot of just about people hanging out and going through the weirdness of teenage life and being kind of reckless. And I actually just enjoyed how like loose and like not unpredictable, but the characters were just doing like these odd, crazy things. It was more about the hanging out and the vibe rather than the plot. But unlike Dazed and Confused, it's not one day; it's a whole year.
Did you two notice Nick Cage was in it?
Yes, yes.
What?
It's for a split second.
Yeah,
Nicolas Cage. He's on the bleachers during the football game where Forrest Whitaker wins. He's in it for like a split second, and he's doing this.
No, he's
And
in
I was like, that can't be.
restaurant, too. He's in the restaurant. He works with Brad,
Oh.
the main character. If you take a look back, you'll see. I think he's got the hat on and stuff, but I had no fucking idea he was in that until I think this year.
I did not recognize him at all. I would have probably like said something if I recognized him before. But yeah, no.
I just watched. They played it for I don't know what anniversary it was, but they just played it. I think last year, in the movie theater. Yeah, they re-released it. I saw it at a Regal, and before it came on, it was like there was a Paul Thomas Anderson Q&A with the writer of it or the producer, someone I forget. Oh no, the director. Sorry, because Cameron Crowe didn't direct it; he just wrote it.
No.
Yeah.
I'm 99% sure. But
Amy Heckerling directed it.
yeah, that was there was a Q&A before, which was awesome. But yeah, I love Fast Times. It's one of my favorites. I always like to like that soundtrack too is just absolutely phenomenal. I like comparing it to Dazed and Confused, which I think is like those two I think are kind of held in their own on their own pedestal. I always say that I think Fast Times might have taken a little bit too serious of a turn at that point in the movie with the abortion. I always felt that it kind of took this.
That's when it kind of fell off for me, honestly.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be a high school, like a light high school movie, and yeah, that shit happens. But when you're setting this other tone, I think the whole way through, kind of, you got Sean Penn, just going nuts. I love it. But that's like my one caveat I always say about that is that it just takes a really dark turn with Damone's character. But I still love it.
They're just kind of a dick. Like, also he acts like he's
him.
much older. Like the way he talks, he acts like he was a character from Goodfellas, not a freaking high schooler.
Yeah, and he was not good looking enough or didn't have that. I don't know where he got his confidence from to leave a girl hanging for an abortion. But underrated villain, I'll say. He's a fucking asshole in that movie.
When they're in the restaurant, his best friend is on the date with Jennifer Jason Leigh's character. I completely forgot her name. But when they're in the restaurant and he shows up to give him the wallet, I was like, oh, maybe this guy's okay. Because I was like, because he was being a bit of assholey, but like in a way that's more like previously would be like fine, sexist, assholey kind of thing. So maybe for the movie he would be okay. But then the second he looked at her, I was like, oh, this asshole's gonna try to steal her, isn't he?
He cucks his best friend. Also, his best friend is nicknamed Rat. Like, how do you get by in high school named Rat?
I don't doubt that he's the one that gave him the nickname.
Yeah, the friend, like the super, he's just a super sweet kid, and you just feel like he just got completely fucked over, um, by
Yeah.
a guy who doesn't even deserve his friendship, is what I felt like. Like, what the fuck? No bro code at all over there.
Yeah, bro. He did not watch. They didn't have How I Met Your Mother back
But
then.
if I feel like that's very realistic though. A lot of times this like super like very nice nerdy guys who have like these horrible asshole friends that like would like screw them over any chance they get. But like once in a while they'll do something nice, like the wallet thing, or like giving him the courage to talk to the girl he liked or something. And like they sort of like get back on their good graces even though like they're horrible.
Yeah, I
So I
that
feel
that
like that was very realistic for like high school. I feel like that's a very high school friendship. Yeah.
Also, speaking of funny names, the teacher's name is Mr. Hand. Like, is like no one.
Yeah. And no one makes a joke about it, and that frustrated me so much.
Yeah. Also, like Sean Penn's character, Jeff Spicoli, he's like the worst. So you would totally expect him to make a joke about it. You'd be like, "Yeah, Mr. Hand, give me a high five," like something stupid like that. But like that's the one line that he doesn't cross. Every other line, he does the worst. I've look like I think every high school probably has its fair share of idiots. I've never seen someone order a pizza during the class. Like that was just hilarious to me that he just
Oh
had the
That's
yeah.
balls
good.
to do that.
I always think that there's this I know we're gonna talk about it later with Superbad, but there's this fine line with like high school movies of being relatable and being realistic, and then there's that like the ordering pizza in class, or like in Superbad, the cops with McLovin, like it's a movie at the end of the day too, and you want to have that kind of movie magic that's taking you out of it and making it not as documentary-esque, I feel like. And I think that part, Jeff Spicoli, he carries that part on his
Yeah.
shoulders. There are guys like that. I mean, I went to school in my high school where we had a pretty big surf team, and some of them were definitely like him to an extent, but not that bad, which I thought was just
Yeah.
hilarious. He should have won an Oscar for that. Let's get him another one. Let's get Sean Penn another gold statue.
Oscar 3. Whenever I was watching him, I was just thinking he's exactly like Bill and Ted. Like I was just thinking, like picturing like Bill and Ted going like, "We're the Wild Stallions," or like 69 dudes. Like that's the vibe that he gave off for me.
And I thought that it was really funny that every time that him and his friends went anywhere, they would just get out of this Scooby Doo esque van, and it was
The
like just
mystery
full of
machine.
it was full of smoke, and it was like the most like 80s way to show that a guy is high without showing him actually smoking. So yeah, that part always cracked me up as well.
I think I've seen that twice in theaters because there's always theaters that are playing these oldies. I think my dad and I watched that when I was like 15 or something. And that was just crazy. Not to be that guy, but we're on the Film Fanatics podcast, and go to the fucking movies if you're listening to this. That's my
Yes,
point right
for the love of God.
watching Fast Times. I've seen it like 10 times on the TV versus on the big screen. Like, you notice things that you haven't before, and it's just the way to go watch it. So that's my rant about that. But back to it, I had to get that out there.
Yeah, that's a good way to end our talk in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And usually, Holden, in the end of the each movie, we give it a score out of 10. Why don't we start with you? You're our esteemed guest, and this is apparently one of your favorite movies. So let's start with you.
Honestly, I'm gonna give it like a 9 out of 10. And I know it's super high, but I loved it. I love that movie. I love the things that go on in it. I think it's very relatable, but also not at the same time. And the only one point I knock off is, like I said, where it takes that dark turn. But if you were to be, I think I give it that score because if you were to be like, how should I write a high school movie? I would just send you down that path to go watch it. And like I talked to Gal about, like, that's why we're reviewing it. It's just classic. One of my favorite movies.
Yeah. Gal?
I'd say 7.5 out of 10 because of Mike Damone. Nah, I enjoyed it. I think it's a fun one. I wouldn't prefer it to Dazed and Confused, but it's definitely a fun one in the high school movies collection. Yeah, give it a watch, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of movies are also like when you watch it, how you watch it, all of that. I feel like maybe again, if we had watched it at a packed screening, or just at a screening in general, and not at like a tiny laptop screen, I feel like that usually bumps up my rating a little bit just because of the whole experience of it. I will go a little bit lower. I will go like more like a 7. Again, I really like the movie, but there's some parts of it that like, especially the abortion scene that like really like kind of like took me out. Um, and I felt kind of confused of what the movie was trying to like do. But yeah, maybe if I watch it again, it would, with having talked to you, Holden, maybe I'll have a different experience next time. But I definitely had fun. Let's
God.
move on. We're going through the ages. I feel this was the next big high school movie, and for us, not for us, but for a lot of people, it's considered the quintessential high school movie. It is The Breakfast Club. Tell us a little bit more about that, Gal.
The Breakfast Club is one of many high school movies from Mr. John Hughes. I think it's my favorite from the ones that he's directed. And you've got a cast. It's got Anthony Michael Hall, Emilio Estevez, Molly Ringwald, Judd Nelson, and Ali Sheedy as The Breakfast Club. I watched this movie, I think, when I was 16 for the first time, and I think it wasn't on a big screen. I think it might have even been on a plane or something like that. When you play the opening credits and you hear "Don't You Forget About Me," I knew right away like I was going to enjoy this movie. And I think if you watch it today, maybe the concept of like these different social groups, like the jock and the weird girl, or like the etc., like all learning to get along. I think now it's been done to death, but this was the original for this
Yeah.
concept that's now been done to death across genres. But I really enjoy it. I think all the vibes are great, and great dance scenes too. Speaking of assholes in high school, Judd Nelson's character, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets like uh, I feel like we're talking about two guys that definitely earned their place in the high school asshole hall of fame of filmmaking, because man, these two guys are horrible. But yeah, like at least with this particular character, we get more on like why he is the way he is. We get like his backstory. Again, like Gal said, this kind of has been done to death right now. Of like, oh, you're an asshole because your dad is an abusive piece of shit. Like that has been done like a quadrillion times in movies and TV at this point. But again, you have to think that in the '80s, that wasn't that normal to talk about, especially in like a high school movie. That's why I think I like this movie so much, that besides the super fun parts, you really understand with just their conversations. Like we don't have um you know like flashbacks or anything like that, but just with the conversations and the way their relationships build, you really understand like their backstories and all that, because it is very simple in the beginning, or the jock, the hot girl, the this, the that, but by then they're really more complex characters, and I really appreciate that, because it, besides elevating the movie a bit, it also like it was still very fun. Like it didn't compromise on the fun. I feel like at one point by the end, it got a little bit preachy. Like in this rewatch, like
It's an
when they're
80s
having like
movie.
that really deep conversation, and one of the guys talks about killing himself, and then they start laughing,
Oh
and
yeah,
then like
Anthony Michael Hall's character.
yeah, like that was the only part of the movie that like took me out of it a little bit. Everything else was like yeah, I again, I've watched this movie before. This was a rewatch, wasn't like the first time that I watched it, but it's the first time I watched it maybe as an adult, and yeah, I had a blast.
Yeah, I think John Hughes, he's one of my biggest inspirations. He's a masterful storyteller. One of my favorites, I think, of his is definitely Weird Science. Love Anthony
I haven't
Michael
seen that
Hall.
one yet.
It's really good. You should watch it. And what's it called? I think this tone, we were talking about tones with Fast Times. I think this one is set a little bit more serious at the start, I think, and kind of keeps you through that. Like you said, there's a lot of room for fun. One of my favorite things is the relationship between the principal and them. And I think that the fact that John Hughes is able to do this whole story pretty much within all the room, but all at the school, I think, and to make it like so engaging. We talked about how in the 80s not all this stuff was it wasn't beat to death yet, the whole no pun intended, the whole abusive father thing.
Yeah,
And I think that a lot of the problems that these kids have and stuff, it was really refreshing for at the time for them to see that on a movie screen and feel a little bit more connected.
I haven't watched the one you mentioned, Weird Science, but from the ones I've seen, my favorite of his is definitely Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like that's definitely my favorite. Like
I think they're tied for me. I take back what I said about this one definitely being over. I think they're like tied for me.
yeah, like
I live right next to Ferris Bueller's house. Actually, it's like right in my neighborhood, so I drive by it here and there.
wow.
Yeah, that one might be my favorite of his. Actually,
It's got Alan
Yeah,
Ruck.
it was a fever dream as a kid to watch that movie. I was like, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Even though it was like the 2000s.
Special Ferrari.
Gal, let's start with you this time. What rating do you give to The Breakfast Club?
I'd say 8.5. I think this one holds up a little bit better than Fast Times. I'd say it holds up better. Also, the raising the fist shot is really iconic in pop culture in general for film lovers. I don't know if y'all have seen Pitch Perfect, but Anna Kendrick like cries to that final scene in that movie. So that's a funny plug that I'll throw in there.
I'll mirror your 8.5 here. Yeah, it's just a blast of a movie, and I could pop it on probably at any time and have a good time.
I'll give it an 8. I'm a sucker for a little bit more goofy in high school movies, and a little bit more wildness, just because that's how I feel like my experience was a little bit, and like I hold that like dear close to me. But I love that movie. Yeah,
I get
definitely.
that.
It's a
Yeah.
great segue into our next movie, huh?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going forward a bit into another era of high school movies. We're going a whole 22 years forward into Superbad, directed by Greg Mottola and written by Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen. You got Michael Cera, Jonah Hill as Seth and Evan. Not very subtle, but you also got Emma Stone, Bill Hader, Seth Rogen himself, and Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Fogel, or as he may be better known, McLovin in
McLovin,
popular culture.
aka the best high school character of all time, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go
Oh
ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
this movie definitely like is probably my second favorite movie of all time. It had this
Wow.
crazy influence on me and my friends, and I remember it became our like favorite in middle school, and I've had this group of friends for almost a decade now, and it was just like we were like, oh, I want to do that in high school. I want it to be anything similar to that experience. Like not like we talked about, like, you know, there's like the crazy stuff that like would never happen, like with the cops and McLovin and that relationship that they had. That movie so influential on me. I'm gonna send you guys some links to my older stuff, my high school movies, so you can kind of see what I mean. But it's just such a pinnacle of storytelling, and the fact that Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen wrote it when they were like 15 and developed it, and I still think it's just that it's the most relatable and the best high school movie I think ever. And I think
I
that
feel like we'd get along with them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like
I think if Holden was writing that script, like we would have had a crazier movie even.
yeah, I mean, that movie's just fucking amazing, and it was part of that wave of crazy raunchy comedies. I think with like, you know, 40-Year-Old Virgin, because obviously it's Judd Apatow, and then these two just became skyrocketed stars from it. I'm looking at a poster of it right now in my room. It's just absolutely the most influential movie on me. And that whole all-in-one day story that you see in other high school movies, like we talked about Days and stuff, and even Breakfast Club. I love that type of storytelling, and I think that's how I started writing as a screenwriter. If someone wants to start, I'd say go write a fucking all-in-one day story. You have these perimeters that allow you within this time slot. It'll help you write better. And it's super fucking fun to do.
This is actually also my favorite high school movie of all time. and I
Awesome.
just opened my letterbox just to make sure as how high it is on my top favorite movies of all time. I'll stop, and it is my 15th favorite movie of all time.
Holy,
Currently,
really?
I love
Wow.
this movie to death. This is one of the
Super
first
bad.
movies that I fell in love with, kind of like Holden in like middle school ish, watching it with my friends and like when we're like going away on trips and like always rewatching it, and yeah, like especially I had I loved Jonah Hill's character. Um, like I loved his arc in this movie, and I rewatched this movie probably at least, if not every year, maybe every 2 years, and it is always a blast. Doesn't matter how old I am, and it always really kills me in the nostalgia, especially like the McLovin scenes and all that.
The
But
fact that Jonah
but
Hill
yeah,
pulled Emma Stone, I think, inspired all of us young
I
men.
know, right? Yeah,
Uh,
like
yeah,
that was I will say
like he fell on her drunk and she like forgave him the next day. It's like, oh, we got this. No.
that's a cool girl right there. I mean, Emma Stone in all the movies, she's just like, I feel like she's the coolest in all of them. But like in this movie,
This
I'll
was her
say,
breakout.
yeah, it was for all that. I think it influenced a goal of mine is to bring back this golden age of comedy. I feel like I have a background growing up watching all these comedies. That's like my go-to. I've always said that what I want to have my start in wise is I want to write this. I have this high school epic planned of all these accumulated things that have happened and all these ideas. And Superbad is just like a great influence of that. I want to make people laugh again and bring them out to the cinema. And Superbad is just a pinnacle of that influence right there. Like I want
yeah,
people, come out, laugh, have a good time. If you get offended, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what movies are for. You're supposed to laugh and you're supposed to get poked fun at a little bit. And I think it's good for everyone to kind of get made fun of a little bit in a certain way.
I also think Superbad like inspired this a short-lived era of crazy high school party movies. Like we've talked about Project X today, or 21 and Over came out like right after, which I think is a very similar concept. I haven't watched it, but I just remember that sort of became a thing. Like what the how crazy shit could be going on in this house where the parents aren't home. So I think Superbad sort of made way for that, but it's also, I will say, I don't think this is one of my favorite movies, but it's one of my favorite movies to watch, if that makes sense. Like I've seen it a couple times. I think I saw it for the first time when I was 14, and I remember having a blast. You can't not laugh when he goes, "Why the fuck would it be between McLovin and Muhammad?" Like just that's just a classic joke. Or when you got the robbery and then Bill Hader and Seth Rogen are there, and they're like, "Your name is McLovin?" He's like, "Yeah," and he's like shitting his pants, and they're like, "Oh, cool, great, cool." And only they could do that. Like if it wasn't Bill Hader or Seth Rogen, it wouldn't work. Also, I just got off of my Barry binge, so it's another Bill
Yeah,
Hader plug for you.
I
Have you
love
seen
Barry.
it? Holden?
Oh
I
yeah,
just finished the whole thing yesterday.
really?
So
Yeah,
fantastic.
it was good to see Seth Rogen in it too. I remember watching it. I didn't know that they wrote it when they were younger. That was also something that was super inspiring to me, was that these two like high school best friends wrote a movie about themselves. And I was like, well, fuck, like I want to do that like with my best friends, and like that would be awesome. So just like
yeah.
great movie.
I just did the calculations, and this movie came out when I was like 11, turning 12. So I think that also really like helped like how it impacted me. My aunt used to have like this screening room in her beach house, and like I remember maybe that's the first time I watched it. Um, so yeah, like in the big screen, it was amazing. Like that, yeah, man, that movie is special to me. Like I guess it's special to Odin. Like yeah, that's definitely one of the movies I hold like closest to me in like my movie lover type of thing.
Also, the scene when they're like in the room together after all the madness and they just say like, "I love you, man," like as friends. I think it's a very important scene for young guys to watch, to show that you can just have like close friendly love and you can be open about it, and you can show emotions to your good friends without being judged. I honestly think like if you get anything positive from the behavior of these characters, it's that scene. It's a lovely moment between Hill
Yeah,
and Sarah.
I have a really close relationship, like I've said, with my friends, and I love them to death, and I wouldn't be anywhere where I was without them. And I actually, in a way, got like super bad at my two best friends when I was going to Santa Barbara. They went to SLO, which is where I am now, thank God. Like, so I'm with my best friends. But I remember feeling like, holy fuck, like at the time, I'm kind of like alone. And like that movie ending always felt so real. And I don't think it fully kicked in until I was like a end of sophomore year, but that ending just gets me every time. And their relationship, I think,
Yeah.
like you said, really important for people, teens are guys, to show it's like okay to tell your friends like you fucking love them, like it's fine to do that.
Yeah, and going to college is like scary as shit, especially when you're right there, like in the thick of it. And this movie also addresses that, like you just said, and even though yeah, they go to college and all that, it's okay. Like the movie kind of tells you, you know what, scary, it's fine, enjoy high school where you can, but it's okay. We all move on, and
About your
yeah,
friends.
kind of beautiful. Let's start with Gal because I think me and Holden have a pretty good score to dish out this one.
I think I'm gonna be the lowest by far, but it's still a 9 out of 10. I love this movie.
Holden, are we both a 10 out of 10? Easy?
Yeah, yeah, if not higher.
Damn.
Yeah, a 10 and a half from me and Holden.
Yeah, we'll give it that.
This one. Yeah, this movie is perfect. So now let's jump on another decade, about actually 9 years later, to what a lot of people would say it's probably the best high school movie maybe in the last 10 years. Maybe our other movie in this list would say something about that. But it
Mhm.
is Edge of 17. Tell us a little bit more about that, Gal.
It's directed by Kelly Freeman Craig, who also just released "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret," which also a great movie, by the way. And you got Haley Steinfeld, who got, I think, a Golden Globe nomination or something for this movie. You got Woody Harrelson, Kira Sedgwick, Blake Jenner, and Haley Lou Richardson in the cast. And Haley Lou Richardson, I may have a bit of a crush on after watching The White Lotus season 2. So yeah.
I will say when I said that it's the best high school movie in the last 10 years, that's because that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I love this movie to death also. Partly because of my crush on Haley Steinfeld that has lasted the last 10 years, but also partly
Oh yeah,
because, yeah.
he's amazing. He's amazing.
But just because this movie is so sweet and so relatable, and I related a lot to like her arc in this movie. Even I watched it older when I was 2016. I was like 19ish, maybe 20. So I watched it when I was older, and it still like hit me like the stuff that she goes through in high school. Like I felt like I went through like similar stuff in high school. The relationship she has with Woody Harrelson's character is also like just really nice. This is a really feel good movie. Like
I don't
it's
know
a
if nice
different
is the
type of,
word.
like maybe I'm remembering correctly then.
She,
But
he's kind of mean to her at first.
I know, but like they develop like this sort of like beautiful relationship of like a mentor and like a
Yeah.
student. Um
Even though he's
and
grumpy as shit.
Yeah, the best teachers are grumpy as shit. And Yeah, like just I just remember, yeah, loving this movie, and it was one of my favorite movies of 2016. So yeah, I'm glad we're talking about it.
I liked how raunchy it was. I remember her Haley Steinfeld's character. I thought that she was like kind of like a badass. I like that.
Yeah,
And I like when there's characters that don't come across as the nicest people, but you can tell they have a good heart, like through
exactly.
like
That's exactly what I meant. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I feel like that could come. Sometimes people are trying to say things. It's like they're trying to tell you they love you, but they're telling you fuck you, And I like those characters when you can kind of tell as the audience member what's going on.
This is, again, it's like not one of my favorite movies, but it's really special. It's Haley Steinfeld in this movie, I think, is wonderful. And I have a weird journey with this movie. I didn't catch it in theaters, but I saw it on a plane once. I don't remember why. I turned it off after 10 minutes. Maybe I thought it was like dumb or something. Flash forward, maybe even a year, and it's like on. I'm at my grandparents' house, and I'm like looking at the on demand for the movies for free. Edge of 17 is playing. I give it another go, and I just Haley is just. I think this might be her best role, because she shows
I
like
agree,
how much she's
100%.
hurting from her dad's loss, and her mom and her brother are so emotionally unavailable. Her best friend is getting on with her brother, so she kind of doesn't know how to carry on. But she does have a really touching like romantic interest with this guy who likes like animation filmmaking. I always thought that was so sweet. But I do think by the end of the day, even though like the characters can come off as unpleasant, you don't feel that this is like like there are parts where it's savage and whatnot, but there's something really earnest to this movie. Um, it wants you to be charmed. It wants you to laugh without like making a mockery of these characters at all. And there's that scene with Blake Jenner where he's like, without saying it, like he's admitting to her when he comes to pick her up from Woody Harrelson's place, like how much he does actually care about her. Which Blake Jenner's personal life aside, he nails that scene.
Yeah, I feel like that's hitting the nail in the head right there, because like this movie is very like it's weirdly sweet. Like because if you actually break down everything that the characters say and the characters do, it's very raunchy, like Holden said before. But like it has this layer of like kind of like sweetness behind it, and it always shows through. Like it seems like like a really raunchy thing that's coming from a place of love, and I feel like that's like something almost like magical that this movie has that a lot of other high school movies like definitely don't.
It holds its own in its own special place, and I think that's what you all you can ask for with these high school movies and everything is a sense of originality to it, and not reusing the same recipe to an extent. I think Edge of 17, that's the one thing I always remember about it was thank you for something fresh, like from that movie. So
I feel like, yeah, when I watch a lot of high school, there's a lot of these kinds of movies. And I feel like when I watch a lot of them now, I'm programmed to like look for that same kind of feeling Edge of 17 gave me. And really only like Lady Bird in eighth grade reached those heights for me.
yeah, I agree. I remember watching eighth grade in the theater, and I just watched Lady Bird. I think both those they kind of in their little trio group right there.
That's a phenomenal triple feature, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just simply because I know I need to rewatch it, but I remember really liking it at the time. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Gal.
I'll say 8.5, even though I enjoy it more than Breakfast Club. They're like, yeah, I'll say 8.5 for now, but high. Bro, these ratings sometimes kill me.
Yeah, I hate doing them, but we still do it every single week. It might actually be in my top three high school movies of all time, and I'm gonna give it a 9. I yeah
Damn,
I
dude.
have
Now
a
I want to watch it again tonight. What have you done to me?
I have a
Yeah,
really like, you know how Gal has a weird relationship with this movie. I don't. I watch it once, love it. Watch it twice, love it, and all the times that I watch
I was on a
it.
plane,
So
okay?
that's fine. That's fine. You should watch Uncharted on a plane, not The Edge of 17. Okay, let's move on. We just mentioned the movie that we're gonna talk about now, and actually, this director just had her biggest and any woman director's biggest opening weekend of all time. Tell us a little bit more about Lady Bird, Gal.
So Lady Bird is by far the most award successful movie that we've talked about. Um, and it's directed and
Yeah,
written by Greta Gerwig, who
the
for a
genius.
while was this icon in like acting or writing with Noah Baumbach in these like mumblecore movies that were sort of just about like an era in someone's life. And from this recent era of actors breaking out as directors, she's easily been one of the most notable. And I think she's also, I think Lady Bird really marked both awards and just in the industry. I think it marked a really important place in the industry for female directors and their voices. I think if you talk about female directors now, Greta Gerwig's voice is like up there.
It's one of
And
the
of
top
course, you got
ones for
Saoirse
sure.
Ronan, who only 26 or 27, has 4 Oscar nominations. This is one of them. Laurie Metcalf is in this movie. Lucas Hedges, Timothy Chalamet, the lovely Beanie Feldstein, also Tracy Letts, Stephen McKinley Henderson, and a lot more people. It's a packed movie.
Thank God. Gal kind of like pushed me to watch it a little bit because I hadn't seen it. I was a little bit reluctant, just because I didn't know with the trailer and stuff how much I'd like it, and I actually ended up really enjoying it. And I thought that it was just it was funny as hell. And I remember the one part that got me when I first started watching it was when they were talking about the really rich girl who's driving like the Range Rover, and Lady Bird's like, oh yeah, she doesn't actually like take it off-roading or anything. She just shops at pavilions. And I don't know why. I just thought that was so ridiculously funny. But I think Greta Gerwig, like you said, is a genius. She's a mastermind. I just watched Barbie. I love her writing, and I love how honest all the characters feel. And nothing feels like she's trying to make you understand them. You kind of just get it right off the bat. And I think she just has such a masterful way of storytelling. And talk about a movie with a loose plot structure, which are my favorite types of movies. Even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that has that loose hangout movie feel. This movie is definitely more thematically grounded, I'd say, than other things like Dazed or Fast Times. But it has that healthy median, I think, of God, this shit is funny as fuck, and wow, like I feel for these characters and I understand. Even me, I'm not a 18-year-old girl who went to Catholic school. But yeah, no, it's a great movie, and I'm really glad I watched it. I'm gonna go kind of take a deep dive through later on in Greta Gerwig's. I need to go watch all her shit because I really enjoy her as a filmmaker.
I can help you with that because she also wrote some stuff before she started directing. Frances Ha is a great one, so I got you.
Oh, Frances Ha is great.
It's also like this.
Yeah, Noah Baumbach directed.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig plays Frances in that movie.
There's a story in the industry that like right after How I Met Your Mother ended, it was gonna have a spin-off that exists today actually with Hilary Duff, but back then 2015, it was supposed to also be called I think it was supposed to be called How I Met Your Dad for some reason instead of Father.
Is it now Dad or Father? I don't watch it.
Now it's Father. Now it's Father, but
Okay.
back in the day it was supposed to be Dad. It was supposed to be Dad, and Greta Gerwig was supposed to be the character telling the kids how she met their dad, right?
Mhm.
This was again before Lady Bird and all that, and they shot a pilot. Apparently, the pilot was like mildly successful. It was gonna get picked up right after How I Met Your Mother ended, and for some reason, I don't remember why exactly, but like it blew up, and it didn't. Like
I think the test viewers hated Greta Gerwig's performance. I think that's what it was.
Really? No way.
That's what Greta said once on a talk show, that like
Wow.
they would always like you could turn the knob right or left if you like or dislike something, and they would always turn the knob left when they didn't like her. Now she's successful as hell, so she doesn't have to worry about this story. But I think
anyway, it blew up, and then she went on to have this incredible career. So like, I am so, even though I'm a fan of How I Met Your Mother, I'm so fucking glad that she didn't get that, because like now we have basically one of the best directors working today, writer directors, and like Holden said, her writing is like impeccable. Like it's so good. Um, it's so relatable, but at the same time, it works with these crazy ideas of something that you can't really relate to. But like at the same time, she kind of makes it relatable. If that makes any sense, like when you relate to a freaking doll in Barbie, or in this case to a 15-year-old girl, even though you're a 27-year-old dude watching it in a laptop screen. So so yeah, I also hadn't watched this movie until this week. I'm so glad I watched it for this episode. I love this movie so much, and it's definitely already one of my favorite high school movies, for sure. And yeah, really cemented Greta Gerwig as one of the best writer directors right now for me.
It's kind of easy because there's so many high school movies made today for this one to have get lost in the crowd, but it was all because of Gerwig and Ronan and so on that it didn't, and it got nominated for picture and director. I actually saw this one in theaters. This was back a whole 6 years ago when movies that were nominated for Oscars would actually make money. And this was like
Oh,
Thanksgiving weekend.
I remember those days.
And this was like Thanksgiving weekend. So Coco had just come out on the same day, or Justice League was playing, Thor Ragnarok, or you would have other Oscar movies you could watch, like Three Billboards that year. And still, my theater was completely full. I might have been one of the only guys there because I was there with my mom and a lot of women, but I really did enjoy it. My crowd was laughing so much, and so was I. I remember, she meets Lucas Hedges, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm Irish, so it's hard to find someone to date who's not your cousin." That's one of my favorite lines, personally.
It's a good line.
And yeah, Lady Bird is a very interesting character because she's very much bent on making herself heard. She's very much a rebel in the classic sense, even though I think jumping out of a moving car is a little far. But
But
besides
watch that
that
first
part,
scene, like that right away. That tells you what a kind of like writer Greta Gerwig is. Because like
yeah,
the first scene, you're in this car. Again, super relatable. We all had like stupid fights with our mom or
like
our
a
dad,
college visit
where
right
you
after talking
where
about your
you're in the
future.
car. They're taking you somewhere. You don't want to be there. They don't want you to be there either. You're just going at it, and I'm sure we all had the thought, man, I could so easily just jump out of this fucking car and leave this person talking to themselves. Uh, so yeah, that was the perfect way to start this movie. I think it's probably one of the best like first scenes in like any high school movie. Just like really gets you going right away. You know this movie's gonna be funny. It's gonna be heartfelt. It's gonna be relatable.
It's also like a bit semi-autobiographical. She even based
Yeah,
it in 2002 to sort of like make her a bit of a character in it herself. And really, she's even said this, that the root emotionally is the mother-daughter story. It's not, you know, will she get her heart broken by Lucas Hedges and Timothy Chalamet, which we can get into that. Timothy Chalamet kind of broke out because he had this and Call Me by Your Name at the same time, and he's kind of an icon. But
what a start.
it's yeah, exactly. But it's I think like Laurie Metcalf delivered such a good performance. I didn't really know much of her before. Like I only found out after that she voiced the mom in Toy Story 3. All the Toy Stories, sorry. Um, but she's wonderful. Like, of course, there's a scene
She's
where
fantastic.
Lady Bird has to go off to college and she's crying in the car, or every conversation they have together. Like, you side with both of them, but they're both like on your nerves. Or, of course, that final moment is actually between, they're now in opposite sides of the country, but it's her realizing how
It's the
important
closest
that
it's so
relationship.
beautiful. It's like the closest they ever been, and it's the furthest they ever been at the same time. So like it's like the perfect like ending for that movie, because she got what she wanted. Sorry to spoil, like going to college and all that, going to the college that she wanted, and but she lost that connection that she basically didn't even know she had
You took
with
it
her
for
mom.
granted in
She
classic movie
they
sense.
exact in classic like adolescent sense. I feel like every kid in the world takes for granted whatever like their parents do for them, and like the sacrifice and like for instance just from our conversation here, and knowing Gao and his relationship with his parents, we all have pretty good relationships with our parents. Holden, I'm guessing from your relationship with your dad that you told us a little bit about.
Yeah.
um, but it's something that like really grows with time, and this movie really says that, because when you're in high school, you're hormonal, you're angry, you're a bit of a bitch, uh, and you really can't see whatever your parents do, and like yeah, this watching this movie as a 27-year-old that has a more healthy relationship with his parents really does put you on that other side a little bit more, and like it is something that everyone goes through, and she nails that. Both I'm never gonna say her name right, so I'm gonna say
Ursha.
Rose. I know that's wrong, but whatever. uh
Ursha.
and Greta nailed that relationship like more than a lot of movies do. So yeah, shouts for that.
If we want to give some closing thoughts and ratings, I'll say 9 out of 10. I think it's arguably one of the most influential movies of the 2010s. and I think it's one of the best high school movies ever made.
I'll give it an 8 out of
Go ahead,
10. I really liked it. Definitely on my list of great high school movies. Not making my top 5 though. I'm not sure where it'd stand, but I really enjoyed it, and I really like Greta Gerwig as a filmmaker. So 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll go right in the middle of you guys. I'll go 8.5 out of 10. But I do have a feeling that upon a rewatch of this movie, it should go to a 9. Wow, that was a really fun episode. Great time talking about high school movies, even though I haven't been in high school in like a decade. Uh, uh, yeah, whatever. It was good to remember. Now I'll go back to my depression. So, great, great episode. Thank you so much, Holden, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Again, of course, it was a blast. Again, go watch his movie. Just text him on Instagram. Send him a DM so you can watch his movie right now. It's a great movie. We just watched it. And Holden, where can people find you online? Instagram, YouTube, all that.
Right there, it'll say at Mo's Productions. That's my production company. You can also find me on just at Holden Pollak on Instagram. Go check out my IMDb. Really quick plug. I'll say I'm writing my new movie is about a private investigator in 1975 Palos Verdes, following a case revolving around Lunada Bay and some mysteries involved with that. Going to be like Indiana Jones mixed with The Big Lebowski, mixed with Chinatown. So get ready for that.
That was wild.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. If you want to go check out the synopsis, it's on my IMDb. And yeah.
I'm thinking Chinatown, Big Lebowski. The tagline has to be "Forget it, Jake. Let's go bowling."
Oh God, yeah, yeah. Get ready, guys. Yeah.
That sounds great. Actually, I'm kind of mad now that it's gonna take so long for us to watch it. But
it's called Sleuthhound Screwball, and I'll send it to you guys as soon as I'm done with it. I start filming.
That's a great name.
December. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited.
And you can find us at Film Fanatics Pod. We post our content on Instagram and on our YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music on audio versions as well.
Yeah, and remember to hit that subscribe button right there. We're really trying to make this YouTube channel work. We've been doing like the audio podcasting for a few years. Check the subscribe button and go follow Gao, Holden, and myself in our tags here. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. And that's it for us. Bye.
Film Fanatics. From the silver screen to your earphones with Alan Azulay and Gal Balaban.